good afternoon or good evening. I'm Audrey Wiggins, and welcome to another webisode of Make Something Happen. I'm sitting here in the studio today with Lisa Gaynier. She's my friend and co-worker, so I'm excited that you said yes and you came on the program, Lisa.
Happy to do it. Glad you invited me. Yeah, it's
Great. Okay, absolutely. Now, Lisa is she's the founder and leadership of her own consulting firm, and it's called CreativeChange.biz. And she's also the director of the diversity management program at Cleveland State University, and that program was founded in 2006.
Well, actually, the program has been around for 17 years now.
Okay.
I joined in 2006.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All
So
right.
I can't even claim credit for the program. Yeah, it had already been in existence for 10 years when I joined the program. But
All
yeah,
right. Okay.
yeah.
So then, for the last 6, then you've been
Yeah.
been a part of the program.
Right,
You're the
right.
director.
Yeah.
And running that. And
Mhm.
the purpose of this program is to develop culturally competent leaders who can lead and sustain change.
Right.
And change
right.
has been a big buzzword. Well, Lisa, give us a little more information or background. So, I just gave a little brief synopsis
Yeah.
of the couple
Yeah.
of things that you're involved in.
Yeah. Well, let me just talk a little bit about how I arrived here.
Okay.
So my company firm's name is Creative Change. So I've been doing things around change for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, my interest in change came about when I worked at another organization where they were really having difficulty managing change, and I
Okay.
got very, very interested in what is it about change that makes it so difficult for
Mhm.
people and organizations to change. And so I started this consulting firm. I specialize in leadership and organizational effectiveness. So my goal as a former entrepreneur myself is that we can have happy organizations and happy employees,
Okay.
which translates into profitable businesses. Whether it's a
Absolutely.
nonprofit or whether it's a for-profit business,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be profitable enough to keep yourself in business. And so my goal is that we marry both of those, and that you don't have to have unhappy, exploited employees in order to have profitable businesses. So that's
Absolutely.
kind of what got me into this. And then right around 2006, this opportunity came up to go inside another organization again. It's one, consultants always have kind of a bad reputation. It's easy for us to come into an organization and say, you should do this or you should do that, right? And then we walk away and you all get to clean up the mess or do whatever, And so, and mainly that's because organizations, change is hard. And
Yes.
so even if you do one thing, that may not be enough, right?
Mhm.
And so in any case, this opportunity came up. I had always said, well, to keep my skills sharp, I ought to go back internal myself on occasion so that I can make sure that what I'm telling people
Yes.
is actually really relevant.
That's right. Mhm.
So when I had this opportunity, I thought, oh, this is really exciting. This is a great program. I think I'd like to be part of this. So here I am 6 years later. And we've done, it's a fabulous program to begin with, because we're really focused on developing individual people's capacity to lead change
Okay.
and to manage diverse workforces, which
Mhm.
increasingly
Mhm.
is so important,
Oh,
not just at the
absolutely.
domestic U.S. level,
Mhm.
but globally.
Yes,
Right? I mean,
yes.
even if you never leave Northeast Ohio, you're likely to be having to interface with somebody from a different country.
That's right.
You know?
I want to stop right
Yeah.
here and take our break because that's key. When we come
Okay.
back, let's get a little deeper
Okay,
into that cultural competence.
happy to do it.
All right. We'll be right back on the other side of this message. We're back again with Lisa Gaynier, Director of the Diversity Management Program at Cleveland State University, and her own business, Creative Change.biz. Now, Lisa, before we took the last break, we're
Right.
about to jump into this cultural competency.
Right.
You want to finish that?
Sure, sure. So, my experience over time has been that a lot of managers, especially American managers, don't understand that there are different cultures. They may have an idea about an organizational culture, but they don't also understand that there are cultural artifacts, that they make decisions about people based on cultural artifacts and assumptions that they have. And so they think they're being fair, or they think they're being objective, and really they're not. They're basing these decisions that they make about people based on the cultural upbringing that they have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think increasingly in this increasingly diverse culture that the U.S. has, and this global economic environment that we
Yes, as the marketplace has just expanded.
Yeah, it tremendously. When I was consulting to Ford Motor Company, we had engineers from all over the globe, from all over different functional areas, and you would be amazed that different engineers have different kinds of cultural assumptions as well.
Yes.
Right? And so I saw this diversity playing out in all different kinds of ways, and I was like, leaders need to understand this stuff, right? So that's what really got me interested and involved. I had been doing leadership consulting for a number of years, but then I really realized the kinds of things that I was taking for granted around culture. I mean, my lens, because I had grown up as a multicultural person, my lens was already kind of expanded in that direction, and I was realizing that businessmen need, not just men, but business people need to understand that these are the kinds of things that really have an impact on their organizational effectiveness. When you're a manager, it's all about getting things done through other people.
Right.
And if you don't understand that different people get motivated by different things, then you're not as effective as you could be in getting things done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that is so key.
Yeah.
And as far as that program, so you're actually teaching, running the program, and how does that program work there at Cleveland State?
Yeah, well, I do both. I teach in the program, and I recruit students, and do pretty much, have my hands in everything. And so it's a program that was designed for mid-career adults.
Okay.
Actually, at the request of the Business Roundtable back in the mid-90s, and there was a recognition back then that that there were issues with economic inclusion, and so the university stepped up and responded to this business need and created this program. And they knew that most of the folks coming to the program would be working full-time jobs, so we had to make this, and it's a master's program, by the way. I don't think we talked about that.
Right.
It's not just a professional development program, it's a master's program. So we had to make the program work-friendly, right? So, and again, this predates me, so I can't take credit for this. But what they did was, it's a 3-day-a-month class, intensive class. So you only have to leave work for 3 days a month, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
And you have 3 full days of class. So we cram a lot of information and a lot of skill practice into those 3 days. And then in between those days, you're on your own doing a lot of reading, a lot of writing of papers, and now with the internet, we're getting a whole lot better at doing online assignments as well. Which Audrey, I think you could help me with designing some of that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
be glad to do that.
Yeah, and so this way, people who are holding down full-time jobs can still pursue this master's degree without killing themselves, and chasing back and forth, to campus for an hour here and an hour there.
Well, let me ask you this then. So it's 3 days out of the month. Does it run through the regular semester? time frame?
Kind of. We have our own schedule because when you're only in class 3 days a month, you got to work around all the holidays and the vacations and everything. So we go for 21 months full time.
Oh, okay.
The only month people have off is December. They go to class through the summer, and we're a little bit outside the regular semester. You know, like for instance, we start the first week of August, whereas CSU regularly starts, 2 weeks into August or 3 weeks into August. So, but generally speaking, it's, fall semester, spring semester, then summer semester, then fall, and then spring again. So it's 5 semesters, August for a year and a half through April of the next year.
Okay, and then they graduate with an
then
MA.
They graduate with a full MA and a certificate in diversity management. So you become a certified diversity professional.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's key. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that. Okay, so what else then can you tell me about the program?
Well, I think what we do, first of all, what I should say is that this is the only program of its kind in the country. There is no master's level program doing what we do. So I think that's the first thing. I think the other thing is that we, every year, we're updating the material so that it's fresh and it's cutting edge.
Okay.
And we're doing things like, it's not just about learning new knowledge, it's also about learning new skills. So there's lots of opportunities to practice with each other. Race and gender and these other differences are painful things to talk about sometimes. And so what we're really about is helping people get more comfortable talking about these kinds of issues in ways that are thoughtful and fair with each other, rather than getting into conflict, right? So we're really, really about developing skills and developing your own awareness around your own biases, because you can't really work on everybody else until you kind of understand your own stuff as well.
Absolutely. Is that why this program is housed in the psychology
that is exactly why we're housed in the psychology department. But also, to be fair to my psychology colleagues, all of what business schools teach nowadays around organizational effectiveness, organizational behavior, all of that stuff came out of the psychology department. It's just become incorporated into business school curricula now. And people have kind of forgotten that back in the day, it all came out of psychology.
It's like, remember a tape program that had gotten years ago, talking about cassette tapes, and it was the psychology of sales, of selling.
Yes, yeah.
So because you can't sell anything, you have to know, like you're saying, who you're selling it to or are trying to sell it to.
Absolutely, and all the persuasion tactics that we know about, and this recent, election, all these political parties trying to persuade people to vote their way or their way.
Yes.
It's gotten to be a high science, figuring out, how to persuade people, and what's interesting about psychology is we're learning that sometimes when you try too hard to convince people of your position, all you actually do is reinforce the position that your opponent or the person you're trying to convince already has. So you'd be better off not saying anything.
Right, exactly.
Right? So,
it's just like, the same the adage like, you look smart until you open your mouth.
Yeah.
Go here, don't say a word.
So those challenges, it's very important for us when we're talking about prejudice and biases and unconscious bias. We have to be very careful about how we go about talking about these things, because otherwise we just reinforce the very thing that we don't want to have happen.
Yes.
So I think that's one reason why a program like ours is so important, because a lot of well-meaning people are out there trying to address these problems, but they may not be addressing them in the most effective way that they could be. So I think that's another really important thing. I think the other thing that our program does is that we work the whole person. So, there's stuff up here, in your executive brain, but there's also prejudice doesn't come from your executive brain.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not very effective to work on prejudice when
Right.
that's not where it comes from. And then there are other not less important, but other things about how we understand culture, which I think, again, has to do with things other than our cognitive brain. So we do stuff around linguistics, like getting people accustomed to hearing different kinds of accents.
Yes.
So that they can hear the person's message through whatever accent that person has, and then making folks aware that we have prejudices about different kinds of accents.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we tend to think of British accents as being high class and educated and this and that, and then other kinds of accents, whether they're American regional dialects,
Yes.
you know, or Chinese accents, for that matter, are not thought of as highly as a British accent.
Okay.
So there's bias and prejudice even built into accents. So we have a whole online program. We're working with one of our colleagues in the speech and hearing department who has done this whole project on accents.
That's interesting.
So we have students, and they can do it online at home whenever they're ready. They listen to, every week, they listen to 49, I think it is, different accents.
Wow.
So that they begin to get used to hearing different kinds of accents. Because part of what happens, we've also found that you don't behave well or perform well around people who are different, oftentimes because you feel so uncomfortable, and in some cases so inadequate, that you can't function properly, right? So this is just another way to practice, right? Okay. It's just like the basketball court. It's practice, 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 right? Right. So we're trying to offer a lot of really interesting, exciting, fun things that help develop skills.
Yeah. That's important, because a lot of the companies that I imagine that the students work for are global, because I can remember years ago working at General Electric, and we were in the energy division, and all of our clients were global even then, and we would do, then we had the video conferencing or the phone calls, and I got used to, you know, the different accents. To this day, I can still remember, you know, in my mind, I can hear this man talking, you know, from Turkey, and you know the accent that he had, or the man that was over in Manila. It was just awesome. Yeah. To hear those accents and you know, to know who. Oh yeah, well that's Mr. So and So that's coming in. That's awesome. You talk about change, and you know, that was another key thing back in the 80s. Right. You know, kind of
well, and the change, you know, businesses have been dealing with change for a long time. There's lots and lots that's been written about it. And it keeps accelerating, right? I mean, every time we think we've gotten a handle on it, it ramps up again. And the technology, you know, I mean, just this technology of this, you know, the taping technology, when I was back in college and doing TV and radio classes, you know, there was a big studio and big cameras,
lights, and you're hot.
And it's so different now. So change is happening so rapidly, and it's hard for us to, you know, keep up with.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. But on that note, we'll be right back after this message.
Hi, I'm Dr. Howard Cohn, and I'm here to tell you about the key to alkalizing your body, and that's our 7.2 greens. This product is amazing. You'll never find anything else like it on the market. This thing has taken so much time to put together to get it exactly the way we want it, so that you can literally eat it out of your hand, out of the container. Most people know that if they eat greens, they're going to be healthier. They start doing it, they do it for a day or two, they try wheatgrass, or they try eating spinach or broccoli, and they go, you know what? I can't do this. It tastes like I'm licking the bottom of my lawnmower. And they stop. They know it's good, but they stop and they don't do it. We've engineered these greens to taste amazing. I can't wait for you to try them. Our 7.2 greens are made with all organic ingredients, certified organic ingredients. Our cereal grasses, which are barley grass, oat grass, alfalfa, and wheatgrass, all organic. Our alkalizing vegetables of parsley, broccoli sprouts, spinach, kale, cabbage, carrot, and more, all organic. Our flavoring, which is apple and raspberry, organic, and even our Lohan berry, all-natural sweetener. No algae, no soy fillers, no artificial flavors, no colors, no sweeteners. There is nothing on the market like this. I've tried literally hundreds of greens products, all a disappointment. I've had tons of patients say they can't do it. For the first time ever, we have a greens product that people will not only take, but they'll love. I can't wait for you to try it.
We're back again with Lisa Gaynier, Director of the Diversity Management Program at Cleveland State University.
Right.
We've had some real spirited conversation here. We're going to lighten it up just a little bit. Just
Okay.
lighten it up.
All right.
And you're the perfect one, I think, to be over this program. Because what she didn't say is that she is from Hawaii.
Yes, I am
So you're
from
native
Hawaii,
Hawaiian,
yes.
Asian, Pacific Islander.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit about that. There is something that you've done. You've written a book
Yeah,
in there.
yeah.
Lisa, tell us about that.
Well, I am what in Hawaii we call a hapa haole. And
So you're going to tell us what that means?
Yes, I am. Haole is the Hawaiian word for white,
Okay.
foreigner, basically. You know,
Okay.
because the first people they encountered were white explorers. So that's the Hawaiian word for white people, and hapa means half. So I'm a hapa haole.
Okay.
Now, let me put this in context, because I know Midwesterners are always kind of like their mind is blown by this.
Oh, okay.
Hawaii has
turn
this really cool history, multicultural history. Now,
Mhm.
I'm not, it is not paradise in the heavenly sense of the word that there's no prejudice.
Yes.
Let me be clear about that.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, though, the native Hawaiians were very, very welcoming, and that part of their culture has remained strong through the years with these
Mhm.
different waves of foreigners coming in, and in some cases taking over the islands.
Okay.
So the cool thing about Hawaii is that we, I think, provide the rest of the nation with a very healthy way of looking at race and ethnicity.
Wow.
And in the Midwest, when you ask somebody where they're from or what their nationality is, it's
Mhm.
almost taken as an affront sometimes. In Hawaii, we celebrate different ethnicities, and
Okay.
people want to know what you are, especially if you're mixed race.
Mm-hmm.
So way back when I was a little kid, people would stop my mother because they knew her kids were mixed race, and they would want to know
Okay.
what the combination was.
All
It was
right.
really
So
important.
it was okay
People
to ask.
loved it. Oh
Mhm.
yeah, they
Mhm.
loved it. And in
Mhm.
fact, they would ask you what you were, and then they
Mhm.
would tell you what they were.
Okay.
Right? And so it's a completely different orientation than here in the Midwest. And my former husband, who was a white guy, used to tell me that I was a racist because I was always asking people about race, right? Because he was a Midwesterner and he didn't get that, right?
Yes.
And so for us, it's about celebrating these fabulous, we're like connoisseurs. It's like it's like eating good food, right?
Okay,
You want to
okay.
know what these mixes are. So my dad had very early on, he was very proud of his mixed race children, and he had taught us to say all of the ethnic groups from which we came,
All
which
right.
is Chinese, Hawaiian, French, German, Italian, and now that I've done some genealogy work, I actually discovered I've got a little Swiss in me too.
Okay.
So, and we're all like that, right?
Yes,
we
yes,
just
we
don't
are.
talk about it,
Yes,
right? Because in
yes.
this culture, we're being taught that, we should be race blind, right?
Mhm.
We should be colorblind. And I just
But
think
then
it's
how
so
can you
limiting.
be culturally competent
Exactly.
if you ignore those?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a management professor from Canada who says that well-meaning managers mistake noticing for judging.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're trying to get rid of in this country is judging people based on the color of their skin or based on their gender or what have you. But to not notice is a mistake.
Yes.
And I think is actually, when you don't notice, you're actually not as effective as a manager than if you had noticed.
Right.
Because people have different needs. You can still be fair without treating everybody the same, because your idea about what the same is by itself culturally established.
Yes.
Right?
That's
So
right.
if
That's
you're
right.
a male manager who has, the wife at home, working from home, taking care of the kids, what you think of as fair isn't fair necessarily to somebody who doesn't also have the privilege of having somebody at home
Yes.
taking care of the kids, right?
That's right.
So I think it's important to understand that treating people the same is not the same thing as treating people fairly. And I think Hawaii provides the rest of this country with a really good example of multicultural tolerance and multicultural celebration in ways that that are it's just wonderful.
More accepting.
It's far more accepting out there. Right. Yeah.
All right, we're going to be right back with Lisa Gaynier.
This is your day to shine, your time to win. So raise your cup and drink.
Hii coffee ni nzuri sana, kwa hivyo tunatakikana kukunywa, alafu tunasaidia dunia yote, trayendo los tesoros de la tierra a la gente del mundo.
Your time to win. Why do the same when you can go? Why do the same when you can go beyond, beyond, beyond? Go beyond.
Lisa, before we took our last break, we really got in more deep. Even though it was kind of a lighter conversation, it ended up being quite deeper.
Yeah, it ended up
with the
being
culture.
deep again.
Yes,
right, yeah.
yes. But,
So,
but I think that was important,
yeah.
and it supports. It's like a foundation to the program.
Right.
It actually
Yeah.
that you're doing,
Yeah.
and so I appreciate you opening up and telling us,
Yeah.
about cultural competence or from a Hawaii standpoint.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I thought that was great. Thanks for sharing. I learned something new today, and that's good. We
Yeah.
always want to learn something. But along with that, before we just wrap up, though, I know
Okay.
you have a cookbook you mentioned, and
Yeah.
I think you said your parents
Yeah.
were actually writers
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. So this might tie into what we were talking about with entrepreneurialism. So my parents started a restaurant when they were in graduate school because they thought it would be a good way to raise funds for graduate school. So when I was 7 or 8, they opened up a little tiny takeout Chinese operation, Chinese
Okay.
Hawaiian operation in Indiana. And at the time, at Bloomington, Indiana, where Indiana University is, this is where my dad was doing his PhD, there were like 3 restaurants, Howard Johnson's,
Oh
a
wow.
pizza joint, and a bar.
Okay.
Right? So there wasn't much there. And so my mother loved to cook, and so we started selling Hawaiian Chinese food
Okay.
there in Bloomington. We were selling teriyaki. In fact, my mother brought teriyaki to the mainland in 1960 when we came.
Wow.
And we were selling teriyaki shish kebabs and teriyaki chicken and ribs
Okay.
and fried rice. And we did that for a couple of summers, actually. And my parents raised the money for the first house we ever bought.
Okay.
Was with this little restaurant that we had. So fast forward, I'm an adult, I've graduated from college, and I can't figure out what I'm going to do with my life. So what do I know how to do?
Listen
I
closely.
know how to do. I know how to cook. So I go into business in Michigan, running a multicultural
Okay.
Hawaiian-themed restaurant. In fact, I had 2 of them in succession.
Mhm.
And so when I sold the second business, all of my customers were going, "Oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? You have to write a cookbook." So we wrote a cookbook.
All right.
And I decided that just writing a cookbook with recipes wasn't enough. And my mother, being a frustrated writer, she was an English teacher for many years, she wanted in on the act. So what we've written is a multicultural cookbook of Hawaii and its cultures. There are recipes from 9 different ethnic groups in there.
Awesome.
And my mother has interspersed the recipes with stories about growing up in Hawaii and tips on how to cook. Because I think a lot of times for people who don't cook,
Yes.
you know, even something as simple as how do you hold a knife and not cut your finger off when you're, cutting meat is important. So all of those kinds of, we threw it all into this cookbook called Diamond Head Remembering Hawaii. And so we did that in 1999, I think it was.
All right.
And had several printings. And now my dad is trying to get it made into an ebook.
Okay.
So that's where we are with this. It was a fun project. It's a
Yes.
good read, and most people read cookbooks for the stories and never cook out of it. So
Okay.
we tried to fill it with lots of interesting and fun stories.
I'd like to get my hands on a copy of that. It sounds interesting. Well, Lisa, as we're coming to our close, I want to thank you again for coming today and tell us about the diversity management program at Cleveland State, and enjoy learning more about you and your background, what you're doing, and how you're making a difference in our global marketplace with that program. I think the program is very important.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. And in closing, then, what advice, or if someone was interested in being a part of that program, or if they're working?
Yeah. Well, I think I do 2 things. As far as the program, if you're interested in learning more about the master's program in diversity management, then I would suggest contact me directly. My telephone number is 216-523-7266. You can find us on the web as well, and I think, Audrey, you might have some information that you
Yes,
can
put
post
the
on
website
that.
up. Yes.
And then my other piece of advice has more to do with entrepreneurialism, because we had also talked about that a little bit, and that is to say that I recommend trying to go into business for yourself, but you also need to be realistic about what you can accomplish. And so I would recommend start off your business on the off hours of the day job
Yes.
and build up your cash reserves. It's not smart to walk away from health insurance and that sort of thing unless you have a really solid backup plan. But being an entrepreneur is a fabulous thing to do, and it's very soul fulfilling in many ways. But go in with your eyes wide open and make sure that you have a backup plan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome,
This has
and
been a lot
we'll
of
see you in a
fun.
few days.
See you on Monday.
Yes, your Monday. Okay, yeah, so thanks again, and you go out and you make something positive happen in your world today.